I'm here with Maurizio today, and I must admit, I didn't plan anything. I don't have any questions ready, but I know what I want to talk about. And even though I don't want to talk about Cataclysm, I feel like I have to ask you about how the last tour went with Decapitated. I saw you guys in Toronto. It was a killer show as always. So
Mhm.
let's start with that. How was that tour run for you?
Very interesting tour because well, first of all, the tour itself with the package was great. It drew exactly what we expected out of it and even more in a lot of the markets. I mean, Toronto was a great show. Also, I think there was 1,000 people there. It's been a great it was a great tour. The only thing is that I was in a different situation on this tour. We didn't have a tour bus. It's like the first time I think in 20 years I don't tour in a bus, and the reason is because I'm building a fleet of sprinters that have in the interior like tour buses, and we're developing these to help bands tour the United States and Canada at a more affordable price, because right now the inflation is kind of destroying a lot of bands and it's making things extremely hard. So I had kind of this vision a while back, and I was able to build one ready for this tour so I could stress test it myself. I drove myself. The guys with me drove. It was crazy, but it brought me back to like a while back when I started all this thing, and I loved the experience of seeing where I'm going, right? Like I've seen the country. What a beautiful country. Canada, incredibly beautiful. And also the United States, like everywhere we went, we actually got to experience the country, which was awesome. Big difference, right? Because when you're in a bus, you go to sleep, you wake up, you're in front of the club, right? You never get to see nothing. So in general, it was that. And then I got injured on the tour. I think of like when I was in Quebec City. I thought I was, still a soccer player, like when I was young, and I started playing. I started running with Steph, my tour manager, and I pulled my hamstring. And I pulled it real bad. Like it's like I couldn't walk, like for at least 2 3 days. In Toronto was the third show, so I was limping on stage, and I was trying to make it through the show. It was super painful, but I mean, it was okay. But so that reminded me that I'm up there in age, and I should be more careful.
So did it pass the stress test? The van, is it
Yes.
roadworthy?
Yes. So basically, the interior is like a front lounge of a tour bus, and then in the back it has all these bunk beds like a tour bus. It has the big thing about it. It's not like it hasn't been done before. It's been done before, but the big thing, the innovative part about it, which is a prototype, is the fact that um, it has like a Tesla type of battery in there. It has an inverter, but it has like the batteries and all that stuff, and those batteries act like a generator. So basically, you can be minus 20 outside, and you're gonna have heat coming off the fuel line of the truck. And then if you're really hot, you got AC pumping through it. Uh, every outlet works. You got power going on, and the thing we weren't sure about is how long does it last. Like, so basically, I think in Chicago we had like 35-degree weather. It was super hot, like a 90 something, and we basically had to run the AC pretty strong in there during that day, and it that's the lowest that the battery ever went, which was like 75% battery still operating. So we only just lost 25% in 12 hours. So it was like really cool. Like, so basically it did wonders. It were great, and so now we're thinking about building more of these. So that's the idea right now. So
We could have used that AC at the Phoenix when you guys play there, because
it was hot.
you're probably not aware of this, but well, you're aware how hot the venue was because it was packed. But it was so hot and it was so humid that people's sweat was building up in the ceiling and then raining back down on us. So
Really?
yeah, so there was at one point I was like, Who's spitting on me, or who's throwing water at me?" Because I feel like it's like shit is falling on my head, right? Like, and I look up and I see condensation on the pipe. So like shit is coming back down from the heat that's being
Wow.
generated by everybody's body. So it was a super hot show. It was hot by weather wise, and hot because the bands were hot and they were good, and it was a great performance. So I don't think anybody went home complaining about it, but I've never seen that happen at the Phoenix before. So was really a strange and different situation with the heat on the venue on that day.
Yeah,
But
and the last time I played that venue was with Danzig, I believe, like years and years and years ago. So I didn't remember exactly how that venue was. It was cool, but I was going through all this stuff, so I was just like, you know what? Because the tour was super stressful, right? Like this, so you know you have already that you got to be there with Cataclysm, and you got to compete with excellent bands, which is like I always like the competition, and that's super important. I think for the music industry in general. And I knew when I put this package together that I knew it was going to be a heavy package and tough, you know. And so I had that to deal with, the injury, the stress of the van. Will it make it? Will it not? You know. So we went and we did blow a tire. The U-Haul tire blew after the third show. So I knew it when I saw it. I was like, these tires, I don't think they make the tour, but whatever. So we're driving, you know, in Arizona, and then we're just chilling, and then keep seeing these cars like screaming at us, and I'm like, what the fuck is this? I was like, I didn't know. So then finally, some guys like just doing this, check your thing. So we pull over. I go in there, the whole trailer's like this. The wheel was gone, everything was gone. It wasn't like the rim. The rim was gone, the wheel was gone, everything. The thing just blew. So I was like, okay, this starts, you know, really well. But we got both of those things, both tires, you know, changed, and we headed out, and there was no issues for the rest of the tour. So we did great. So I was very happy about it.
so I had reached out to you about us having a chat in person at the show, but obviously with all of this stuff going on and you know, your injury and everything like that, it wasn't possible. So we decided to do a chat over Zoom. And I didn't want to talk about Cataclysm per se. I wanted to talk more about the stuff that you do outside of Cataclysm, because everybody knows you as the frontman of Cataclysm, XDO, you know, all the projects that you're involved with. But you know, you're a lot more than just a singer. You're a lot more than just a frontman. You're a businessman at the end of the day. And I
Right.
think that part of the that part of who you are doesn't get enough attention, because you do a lot for bands and you do a lot for the music scene in North America and beyond. And I think we need to shine a little bit of a light on it,
Mhm.
because we need more people like you, in my humble opinion. And you know, I think it's important for people to know what you do. And so I wanted to talk to you about Continental Touring, you know, hard impact management. And the first question I had for you is how did you get started? When did the light bulb went off in your head that you're like, you know what, I can do more than just go on stage and sing?
I think something happened to me. I think when actually I started seeing that everything I'm doing with Cataclysm is starting to bring me to a certain place, right? For a long time in Canada, Cataclysm was the only band signed to a major, you know, like I'm talking about for us in death metal or whatever, Nuclear Blast, Century Media, type of labels like that are considered majors, right? And we for a long time it was Gorguts was the first one. I mean, Voivod was always there, but I mean, I'm talking about like Gorguts was on Roadrunner. At that point, that had been dropped. Voivod was not around anymore. I think the Annihilator was doing some things, but there was not a presence, right? And we got signed on Nuclear Blast, and for I think a good 5 to 6, 7 years, it was just us. So we had to kind of, you know, navigate the waters, and I started understanding that in Canada it's very difficult to come out of the country for many reasons, and it just I think from a young age um, I always try to find, I always questioned everything. So basically, I questioned why. I questioned, you know, how can I do things better? Because I remember that, for example, in Canada, you know, that's why the bands in Canada are so technical or so crazy or so out there. They're very different. You know, Devin Townsend, Arcspire, you know, Beyond Creation, Cryptopsy, Void. Everybody, it sounds different, but they're over the top, and they're everything. Everybody is special in a way, and you have to be that in order for the industry to pay attention to you coming from Canada. It's a little easier now, but in those days, you needed to really be out there because America was the first place they're going to go. United States is the hub. Sweden was the second hub. And it's like, those are the places. Even places like Germany, nobody was signed. You know, if you get signed, there was no way you were going nowhere. Like the Germans didn't listen to German bands, right? So that's another thing. You can go deep into that later on if you want. But in general, the idea was that I questioned everything. And even with Cataclysm, for example, I concentrated in promoting the band in Europe at a very young age. Like when I was 16 years old, I was throwing my demos out in Germany and in Europe, while everybody was fighting to be who's going to be the biggest band in Montreal, right? So I didn't care about that. Like I cared about, I want to know what's up on the other side of this ocean, because maybe somebody there is going to like my music, right? And that's how it happened. Like that's how I started. So basically, I started understanding at an early age how things work and how you can make things move. You know what I mean? Open doors where they're locked, or when they're locked, make another one. You know, things like that. So that's how I kind of got the idea, and I really hit me when I think it was around 2000, and when I did In the Arms of Devastation album. That record blew up Cataclysm to the next level. Like, I mean, there was Shadows and Dust and Serenity and Fire, and all the work we put into those records. It was In the Arms of Devastation that really blew the doors open for us. It sold 50,000 units in America, I think, something like that, and it was a killer album. It did a lot for us. But all the moves we made to get there made me realize I can help bands, because when I was on tour, everybody was complaining about the same things, getting noticed, touring, and how can they save money, how can they make money, and things like that, right? So I kind of understood a little bit already how to do all that. So I was giving a lot of advice already at a young age when I was on tour. So that's how I kind of got the first my feet wet into that idea, right? And then it evolved, right? Once I started it, then it got crazy, and the more it got crazy, the more pushback I got from the industry itself. So it wasn't like it was a free ride. This was a very, very huge and tough battle to get where I am right now. So not easy.
So which one did they both appear at the same time? The management, the artist management side, and the touring side, or one came before the other?
Management came first. Management came first, and it came out of just simple kind of need that it was there. I think I was starting to work with a bit like Decapitated and Aborted. I think I worked with a little bit these two bands in the beginning, and I was involved with them, but not really managing, kind of helping out a little bit their contracts and things like that. But that I saw that they were very hands-on and didn't want to really open up to possibilities of somebody else in another band helping them. So there's that also, right? And people don't know if they got to trust you 100% and all that stuff, right? So I was kind of backing out there. But then I fell on Illstorm. And I fell on Hailstorm on Pagan Fest when Ex Deo was on it. And I saw the band. I thought they were excellent. And I thought that everybody, people loved them. Like they were just starting out at that point, kind of doing big tours for the first time, things like that. I noticed they had no merch. They had no merch. Like it was like they had one T-shirt like for sale or something. Why? Because it was Napalm that had a 360 deal with them, and they were controlling their entire inventory. But you can send a band out with 100 T-shirts, not knowing if they're going to blow up or not. But then you got to kind of stay on it to see, oh shit, they sold 60 T-shirts off the 100 we gave them. We got to print more, right? So that didn't happen. So they were kind of like left alone, and I saw them all depressed in the backstage, kind of like they looked like a band that was gonna break up or something. And I asked them, "What's the matter? How come you don't have any merch?" And then they started talking to me about stuff, and I said, "You know what? I think I can help you guys, and I'm gonna do stuff for you, and because I think you got too much potential to be there." And that's how kind of the management thing took off for me. They were kind of like one of the first bands that I picked up, and we were together for about 11 years.
Oh, wow.
They only had I picked them up. They only had one record out, so I picked them up on the second album or third, and then we were together for until like the last two or something like that. So it was a long journey together. We did it all together, and we brought them really high. And I learned a lot, through them, mistakes and things that had to do. But that's how it kind of got together, and then we started getting more bands. Flesh God Apocalypse, Septic Flesh, all these bands started coming in. All bands that was the first step into my world, the death metal stuff. And at that time, Cataclysm was really doing killer. Like again, the In the Arms of Devastation, we were a headlining band worldwide. We're doing really good. So bands were looking up to us into, hey, this guy knows what he's doing. So I I started getting a lot of interest for that, and then slowly we started building that stuff, and then eventually, I can explain to you how I got into
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
the touring business, because that's where everything kind of erupted for me, and it wasn't like all good. It was a lot of battles, right? So at that time, pretty much when I decided, like, when the management was starting to grow and the bands were moving, I had Cataclysm also touring a lot, and as I was grabbing bands that were coming with me, some were with other management, some were with other agencies and things like that, and it created friction because they were like, this guy's on the road, he's grabbing bands, he's doing this, and they like created this thing, right? But a lot of the bands were coming to me. It wasn't like I was like, hey, I'm gonna come with me, type of thing.
Yeah.
It was just natural thing, like a connection, and like, let's do it. Especially Flesh God, the Italian boys. I was like, it'd be an honor to help an Italian band, and I seem to always grab the bands coming from the most toughest countries to build. So, like, even Ailstorm was a UK band. I think half the guys were from, I think some of them from Scotland too, and they were all over Irish, like they were all over the place there. But not a lot of UK bands make it huge unless you're like Iron Maiden, right? So like it's hard. So Italians, forget it. Southern European bands, you being from Portugal, I mean, there's not a lot of bands. Like Moonspell was the only one for a long time, and now I got Gorilla. I got a couple of bands coming out that are cool, but the idea was very tough. So that was a huge challenge. So as soon as we started making noise, more bands from there started popping out, and then Septic Flesh, also from Greece, another country that very hard. Karakangren from Holland, also another country hard. So I kind of grabbed bands from these areas that were more difficult to kind of break, and we worked very hard into getting attention towards them. So that was the challenge. But as we grew, as Cataclysm grew, I started an agency because it was a natural progression for that. That I'm very good friends with Steph. He was the biggest promoter in Canada for a very long time, in Montreal, Quebec at least. He earned the market there, and I told him, you're an agent. You're not just a booking agent. And again, this is instinct, right? A lot of my stuff is coming out of instinct. It's just, I need to do this move. And I told him, what do you think about moving to the States, right? And he was like, I don't know, man. It's a big challenge. Nobody wants to move out of your
Comfort
safety,
zone.
right?
Yeah.
So I was like, but that's your future. That's what you need to do, right? And then he took a chance, went out there, and then we partnered with the owner of Century Media at that time because I needed backup to do something like this. It was not really big in an investment situation. It was more of a protection thing because we were going up against guys like John Finberg, going up against all these big agencies that are out there. Like, who are these guys, right? So this is where it got crazy for me, and I'm forgetting a huge part. One, like the part, because it's such a long story, right? It needs a book pretty much. The idea, for me, I had to leave Canada because a lot of times at that time, now mind you, it's different now, okay? But at that time, when the internet used to be the fax machine, a long time ago, it was. I always had the question: is like, you got the best ideas, you're great, but you live in Canada. I used to be told that all the time. I hated it. I didn't understand why, but I got why. I did understand why, but I didn't think it was fair, right? It doesn't matter. A phone call, I can make the same deals happen from here. But because I had the border, they thought it was difficult. You're not in the United States, right? So I eventually moved to Chicago, and that's when I first got there, and everything changed. The moment I got there, I had an address in the United States. Then it was open game. It was quick like that, and that's part of me was like, it sucks, right? But the other part of me was like, okay, it needed to happen. So, and then that's why the idea of bringing Steph down also, and he needed to go to California for that because Century Media was based there. So I needed that because having Century Media as as a partner, I understood that a lot of people are going to think twice before attacking us, right? And and they did. They came as like wolves at me and Steph, specifically me, because we're like the good cop, bad cop. partners. Like, I'm the bad cop, he's the good cop, he's the diplomatic guy. I'm more like, I got the Italian blood, so I just pull up. So it's like, so I got that reputation, and I think many times it's misunderstood more than anything. So you have to understand, all my fighting from when I was a kid to understand, I got here for a reason, right? So um, basically, the John Finberg was the biggest battle. That was like brutal. Uh, Immediately, Cataclysm was attacked because now you're coming in my territory. I'm the one that gave you the tours. The other agents, I'm the one that gave Cataclysm opportunities, and now you're starting an agency. You're becoming competitive with us, right? Because automatically I brought the bands I had management on top right away, so we had a roster, and then we started bringing pick like bands didn't have a choice. In the middle class and the lower middle, we never came into this trying to be a big agency. We came into helping the middle. What I'm doing right now with the vans, middle, right? The middle, lower. So there's a huge market there, and it's like, and that's a development for the future. And because I remember how hard it was for us, like just to get up. Like it's super tough. So basically, I decided that this is the target we have to be, but who's there controlling it and being the devil, destroying everybody, pushing him down. It was John Finberg at that point. I don't care if this goes out, it's the truth, right? Nobody liked him, but everybody liked him that was making money off him, right? So if you made a lot of money with John, then you were okay with it, but he didn't respect anybody in the industry. It just was very, he was an asshole in other terms, nice terms if you want. So basically,
Yeah,
that's a
yeah.
nice,
I don't think
that's the
I think that's
nicest.
the PG. Yeah, I think that's the nicest thing you could say.
Yes, and then because you probably know him a little bit, right? Some
Yeah.
some history, yeah. So and then you know he was always okay with Steph because Steph, like I said, you cannot hate that guy. He's the nicest guy in the industry, right? He's like my guitar player, JF. He's like the nicest guy in the industry. Everybody loves him, right? And then it was, how come you're with Maurizio? Many times you'll hear that. But the idea is, with Steph is that even him, he attacked him, right? And it's like that's when all those news broke out that Steph went public with metal sucks and all that stuff, and that destroyed him. He got canceled, right? He was the first one in the industry to be
To get
canceled.
canceled. Yeah, yeah.
Yes, and then by getting canceled, what do? We just grabbed like pretty much the agency, like all the bands, Marduk, everybody came over. So now we were replacing that agency inside the circle, right? But now you got the guys on the top, and the guys on the top are looking you down, and they're like, this guy's a problem, right? So he's started, he's getting all these bands, his bands are growing. Now he's touring an agency, he's going to get bigger and he's going to be in the way because I've never been a yes man, so I started seeing the agency was a security thing, a satellite that was important to build because by building the satellite, we can ensure work for everybody. And everybody that's in my agency management, I can give them work all the time and we can build from it. And there's security for Cataclysm as well, right? Because I'm going to be in it. So it was one of the reasons, right? It's like you're inventing your own search engine thing. Instead of Google, you have DuckDuck or whatever. Now you got different, right? A competitor. So that was a problem. And the thing that I sacrificed the most in North America was Cataclysm off that, because that's why there's such a huge discrepancy for Cataclysm, let's say North America versus Europe. If you go to Europe, and Cataclysm broke the biggest, hardest market in all of Europe is Germany. And we broke that. We took Europe, like we were a headlining band pulling 1,000 people. We just did it recently again. But then in America, we were, and you could see when it stopped. Like we were on Ozfest, we were on Dimo Borgir, we were on Chimera, we were on Shadows Fall, we were on all these big tours, like nonstop rotation of Summer Slaughter. We did them all, and then all of a sudden it stopped. Like no invitation here, no invitation there. Like I think the last time you saw me supporting a band, it was lately. It's been a bit different. That's another story. But Soulfly and Dark Tranquility, I think, are the last two that I've done.
Yeah. I remember those two. Yeah.
But those are two in like 10 years. you know. So it's always headlining because I didn't have a choice. So it's just, you can't go further than that. You can't expose yourself. So the band got hurt from it. So this is the sacrifice for it. But I was able to build an agency that I think we have something like 50 bands now, or 40 or something like that. We gave a lot of work and a lot of hope to bands. We built a lot of careers, and I'm very proud of that. You know what I mean? And then all I did is I took the whole agency I built with the Robert from Century Media, because Steph sacrificed so much doing it, to give everything for it. So I like lived in a 1-bedroom apartment trying to make it, all that stuff. I just gave him the agency. I was like, here, it's yours. You know, now you run it. And since then, I've been a little bit more accepted from others. And that's why some of these other tours have been popping up lately a little bit. So it's been like more like, okay, he's not there now, you know, so it's one of those things. So, you know, my mission was accomplished there. I didn't need to stay, right? So like, because I'm not really working it, I can't do everything. I decided to management is my strong point, and I love playing on the stage. I love Cataclysm, and I decided to stay in there. So I'm still a consultant for the agency, but that's all I do now. Yeah,
it sounds like the higher you go, the more people that want to bring you down. At least that's the vibe that I'm getting. And
I think it's the story of everything, right? Like, um, you're gonna have the people that are gonna be supporting you. There is some, and a lot of people that support you because they see a benefit to it too, right? So it's going to help me. The people that are going to support you because they love you is going to be family and other people like that, friends, you know. But most people that are going to support you say, okay, he's doing something good, maybe there's something in it for me, and that's okay, right? That's okay, because that's the way the world works. But the people that are jealous, you know, there's also bands that were like cool with me and then behind my back talk shit, you know, a lot. And just because, you know, probably jealous that I'm getting power, right? Like this guy can give himself work all the time, and that pretty much pissed off people. But I
but
can
I think
understand that.
it's such a great story. I mean, it's the ultimate American dream, right? Like when you think about what the American dream is all about, is you dragging yourself from nothing to something and
Right.
building a career for yourself and building a world for yourself. And I think one of the things that I've always appreciated is that you're very open in terms of if anybody wants to get an advice from you, or some time with you to just bounce some ideas off. You're always very kind with your time. You're not you I never got the feeling that you wanted to keep everything within you. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, you want
Right.
other people around you to grow, because the more they grow, then the more you grow, because you're part of that same ecosystem. I always felt like you were one of those kind of people that sees things beyond just your own belly button. You always have a little bit more of a much larger vision to what could be achieved if we all push each other and if we all grow from one another. And one of the things that I've also noticed is that when it comes to the management side, you take some bands that are releasing their debut records that are like people don't know who they are. I remember at a time, I don't think they're working with you anymore, but Horizon Ignited at one
Yeah.
point,
I
they
love that
were
band. Yeah.
they work with you. No, like I knew, like we checked them out on the channel before they were signed, when they were just starting out. And it's one of those bands that a lot of people probably wouldn't take a chance on, because there's
Right.
not much return on a band like that, at least not short term, maybe long term, but not short term. So if I'm starting off a band and I want to work with you, what do you look at? Like, what's your checkbox? What's your checklist that says this band, I want to work with them?
Um, First of all, any band that is committed is going to start some sort of traction, right? It's good to be good at your music, but it involves a lot more than just being good at what you do. You have to be able to know that, like, you have to be a hard worker, and you got to be a big fan of your music, right? So if you're not insecure, it's already a problem. You have to know that you're good at what you do, and so that's important. So confidence, and then I see if the band is into what they're doing, you know, that's very important. Also, if they are dedicated to this as a full-time thing, or if it's just for fun, right? Because a lot of people have jobs and it's not something they want to do 100%, and that's okay also, but at least it gets you a gauge. But you know, again, huge part is instinct for me. Like I don't know why, I just have it. I have the nose. Some people call me the nose because I got it right. Windrose was a perfect example of that. Horizon Ignited, great band. I think they are very underestimated, but they're very young, and there's a lot of stuff that they need to learn. And then one of the things is that my time at the moment, my roster's too heavy, and I couldn't keep them, because of that. Like I didn't want to drag him into like I can't return your phone call type of thing. And not like that. If I can't do it, I don't want to do it. So that's where it was. But I still help the guys when I can. And I would totally if there's a place that I can help them, I would do it because they're that good. I think they're like a soul work meets in flames. Like they bring me that nostalgia of those old days, like of that type of stuff, but modern, right? But the idea is that Windrose was another example. That band, nobody wanted to sign it. Nobody wanted to touch it, right? It was like I thought, hey, I'm involved, sign it. No, like I got the no, and I got the, I would sign an Italian band. I had that. I had like all this stuff, and I was like, okay. I basically carved up a crazy deal that, like, let's put it this way, it was a stepping stone. I needed to do it. Napalm gave us a chance, and I didn't blow it. We went in there and we made everything work. But that band was a buy-on band on an Insiferum tour in Europe. Ex-Deo was there, and again, like I was there and I saw them, and I had fun with the guys first. Like I thought they were awesome guys. They were funny. They were cool. The songs were super hook. I'm like, these guys are musicians. Like they're really good. They're probably the best musicians on this package, right? They were like really fun. The singer was awesome, and then I was like, I started noticing also that they were, selling like tons of CDs, and people loved them. You got to pay attention to the crowd. You got to pay attention to what's the response like, right? And you have to have the instinct, and I understand also that the world's changing, and that type of environment is very important at the moment. People are tired of the gloom and doom. Also, they want some fun stuff, and I learned that with Ailstorm, and I think that Ailstorm was for me a preparation for Windrose, right? It was a place where I learned a lot of things, what to do, what not to do, and I came much more prepared with Windrose. And Windrose is skyrocketing at the moment, and that's because we're not making mistakes, right? We're being very careful of what we're moving and how we're doing it. So, and again, management, all that stuff for me, I love it because of that. Because I love to take something from nothing and building it, right? It's almost like you said before, my life. We grew up very poor, single mom, all this stuff, and I know how it is. And from that, my band to this, same thing with the bands I work with. The only band I took that was established really heavily was Iced Earth. That's the only one that I had for one record, and I realized I can't work with bands that are too established like that, because they're not learning anything new, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, this is the way we do it. I said, okay, but it's not gonna work. But it's like, so I'm like that, man. I'm very open-minded. I think a lot of people have me in a different light, because I'm also very introverted in certain way. If you're in my circle, like right now, I'm the only one talking because that's the way I am. I'm going to give you information, and I'm going to just
I
give
was
you
gonna
everything.
say, every time we hang out, I don't see you introverted at all.
I am not. I am not with the people that are in my circle or around me that I feel comfortable with, right? But if I'm on a tour, I'm going to be in that bus the whole time, probably. I will be on my computer working. I'll take a walk with some of my guys just to get out, and that's all I do. I'm not going to interact with the other bands. I'm going to pay attention to the other bands. That's what I do. I go out there, listen, watching. If I'm in a competition, because I love competition. Like I just love it. That's why I love sports. I love all kinds of stuff because I love it. I think it's important. And so I'll go check out what are you doing. Okay. All right. I know what to expect, and I love that. Even now that I'm, getting old, I still love to do that. So it's part of that part that drives me to really try to develop bands. And I think we need people to develop bands. A lot of bands, they just want to play music. They don't get the whole business part. It's very complicated, and I have a love-hate relationship with record labels, because in one side they love me because I'm out there and putting them on the right tours, pushing the bands, growing them, making them bigger for them. At the other side, they don't like me because I squeeze them, right? So it's like, so,
Hey,
so
you got to take the good with the bad, but
right, right. So, but we always end up in a good place together, and I think that's a cool thing. And so yeah, so that's pretty much in a nutshell. Like, I know I talk a lot, but that's pretty much
no,
where.
and that got me thinking because you mentioned now the Winrose deal with Napalm Records. You hear a lot of bands these days saying, we don't need a label, we're just going to do it all ourselves. I know, for example, Seven Kingdoms, they've been doing a lot of the work on their own and being
Yeah,
very successful at it.
yeah.
So as a manager, what's your advice? Is there a one size fits all, or every band has to take what works best for them?
Well, it's a very good question, and it's different for everybody. But the landscape's changing dramatically, right? To me, record labels are becoming more and more like marketing tools, and like banks. If you don't have the money to raise it yourself, or you don't have the budget, you need somebody to give you a loan, then the bank is the record label, right? And you get a very small percentage, and off that percentage, you have to recoup all the money you make off records, and their percentage never gets touched, which is the majority of the money, right? And that's why they make a lot of money and bands don't, because it's difficult, right? But the landscape's changing because the internet made it more open. The globalism, all this stuff is making the music business more accessible, easier to connect directly, and all that stuff. But it's also increased tenfold the amount of bands, the people out there, the information. So now it's an overload of everything every day. So that's a problem because you got to stand out, and it's very difficult to do that. And so you're getting to see a lot of this, when you're silly because you're funny and just your characters like that as a band, cool. But then you're going to get people taking that, going to the extreme of that to get noticed, right? So you're getting all kinds of weird stuff happening everywhere, and it's okay, but that's how it is right now. So the advice is really like, if you're starting off, in my opinion, you need to have a record label in the beginning, because they're gonna just pump the money inside the marketing. Some labels don't. And that's what sucks, is that they'll take your record, throw it on the wall, see if it sticks, and that sucks because if it's either gonna work or not. And I have the feeling that Windrose was a little bit like that. It was a little bit like, let's just throw it out there, see if it works, right? And we made that deal with that video company that had Diggy Diggy Ol, and we chose that as the first single. It was a cover song, and there was no way that nobody wanted to release it. I forced it through. I'm glad I did. It blew
Wow,
up.
what a hit that song has become! Seriously.
Yeah, it's like it's the, I think, probably the decade's big hit, right? That's the one, like, it's huge. 50 million, I think now. I don't remember where it's at, but it's up
It's
there like
massive.
crazy. And so it's all these little things, right? And it's like, so if we didn't have Napalm to push it through with marketing and things, and then when they saw it ignite, then they put more behind it, and that's what usually happens. We were able to kind of maneuver, and then sometimes if you need to go on tour, they give you a bit of money as support. Things like that are necessary, right? So if a band doesn't have a lot of money and they need the exposure, a record label's good, but I wouldn't sign for 10 too many records. I would do 1, 2 records, if you can, maybe 3 max, just to get you out there. And then you could take the decision if you're ready to go on your own or if you want to stay. Because if you go on your own, then it's usually a good thing when you get to a point where you have a good fan base, and then that you can manufacture, you have all the tools to manufacture your stuff yourself. You have a direct fan contact, and you can have enough money to tour, which is also a problem for a lot of bands, so it's all that stuff. So that's why they're still important, the record labels. They're more like a helping hand marketing thing now these days, right? The other issue we're getting now with record labels, in my opinion, is that they're all getting bought out. right? So it's like you don't have the old days where it was that dude that was in his basement, like Marcus Steiger from Nuclear Blast, that started that thing in his basement. I got signed when he was in his basement, right? So we're the oldest band signed to Nuclear Blast, Cataclysm, and he was 4 years old when I signed there, and it's like um, that type of mentality is going away. So you're getting corporate companies like Sony, Universal, all these companies just buying Century Media and all this stuff. So I think it's a matter of time that all of these companies will be bought out. There's very few that are independent right now. There's a new label that came out called RPM,
RPM, yeah.
and they're fully independent. They're not
Who also
coming.
bought Atomic Fire, because it was Atomic Fire before. And
Correct. Yeah. But the guy that's running it, that the owner, the main owner of it, he's a diehard metal fan. So he's not he has a he's into aeronautics, I think, some crazy stuff, and then he came from there and like into metal. It's not like he's a product of metal. He's not like a product coming from corporatism that's coming in just buying out everything and squeezing everything. Because what happens is that they eliminate all the people that work at record labels that have heart. Let's say me and you are working at Nuclear Blast. We love our jobs. We're signing these bands. You're an A&R, I'm an A&R. We go to dinner, lunch, whatever. We talk about bands. All that stuff gets eliminated because now they're going to put two people only in charge, and then they bring it through the whole system, right? So, and that's where you start losing a little bit of that connection with the bands. The bands used to love, like, I remember in the old days we used to park our bus at the Century Media Nuclear Blast office in Los Angeles, go there, their barbecue outside. It was the good days. You felt like a rock star, right? Going in your record label. Now those days are gone. It's like you don't really have that type of connection anymore. So it's like almost like a record store, right? There's no more record store. So it's kind of
yeah,
like,
it's becoming a lot like that. And we saw a lot of that with Nuclear Blast, because the guys a huge chunk of the guys went on to start Atomic Fire, now part of RPM. So it's the personal connection is becoming thinner and thinner, if you will.
yes,
Especially when you put those big corporations behind it, because everything comes down to the dollars and the cents, and it's less about the personal interaction that you've had in the relationships that you build. It's all about the bottom line, which it's the way it is when it comes to big business, and unfortunately, that's just the way the cookie crumbles.
it is like that. And then I don't think it's not going to get better, in my opinion. We refuse to be like that. We're 100% independent. We want to remain like that. It's I don't see us going like in that direction, and with the agency going to a bigger agency. It already happened where they tried to come in and, hey, I'm not going to mention names, but hey, join us, like trying to take Steph and me and doing things. But we were like, nah, it's not for us. We're happy the way we're doing it. And we have a direct connection with our fans, and our fans are our bands and the people, and we work hard, sometimes too much, and it gets a little crazy, and sometimes no time for our families, which sucks. But at the end, we're doing it because it's a need, right? Like this printer thing, it's not like I'm going to make a lot of money off it. They're very expensive to build, but if we don't do it, a tour bus right now is about $2,500 a day, right? So it used to be 13, 1,400. So it's 25 with gas and everything included. You're like, it's expensive, right? So if you're that band making $500 a day, it's very hard. So like, bandwagons used to be $700 with gas. Now they're like 13, 1,400. So it's very difficult, to give anybody a chance. Now, if you eliminate all the potential out there, you're gonna have a lot of old rockers that are gonna fade out, and then what's left, right?
Yeah,
Nobody's
yeah.
thinking about
And
that.
actually, that takes me to my next question. But before I ask that question, which has to do with the visas and everything that everybody's been talking about, because
Yeah.
that's going to have a huge impact. I want to ask you about, because you mentioned about the buy-in, when Rose buying in into an Ensiferum tour. How do you feel about buy-ins? Is it the same approach as the labels? It depends on the situation. It depends on the band.
So um it's going to be the same thing I said before about, how good are you? Like, do you think that you have what it takes? Because a lot of the bands that have the money that go do these things, they don't have what it takes. It just sound like another band. They're not special, right? A lot of them. It's just they just have the money. So in Europe, they take advantage of that. In America, it's not as prevalent as it is in Europe, but it is in Europe very much. Like you'll have like an agency that's smaller will take, for example, a good headliner, and then you'll see three unknown bands on there you never heard of in your life, and those bands are buy-ons. They're buying to be on a tour bus. They're paying part of the tour bus, so the headliner doesn't get all the hit, right? So it's okay for that. I think it cheapens a package personally. If you're just taking one band in the sense that Insiferum did, because it was an Insiferum ex Deo tour, and then they added one buy-on to help with the cost. Like they weren't even on the bus. They were just, you're gonna pay to be here type of thing. Like they were in a van. Like, so basically it's not an easy task, but if it can be beneficial, as you saw with Windrose, that somebody's gonna be there and sees you and changes the perspective for you, right? That's a very expensive gamble, right? It cheapens the package of the band that's currently headlining, and doesn't necessarily mean it's just a good financial tool for the headliner. For the band that's investing, a lot of these bands are going to be put at doors. So you're going in at 6 p.m. to the show, you just got in there, the band's going on, and then half empty room, sometimes one row, because nobody knows the band, they're not there early. So you lose your money because nobody's seeing you. You're just on tour, right?
Yeah.
Some people, they just want to be on tour. They don't care about, like, they would like it, but they're like, hey, at least I did the tour once in my life. I paid for it, but whatever, So back in the day, that did not exist. The buy-on bands were signed to major labels already. Let's say, for example, let's go and say Warrant back then, right? So Sony would throw, I don't know, $100,000 on that band to go on the road. So they would pay for it to be on the road. And they would throw all this money at these rock bands, and they would be the first band on a package you never heard before, this band Warrant, but they were signed on Sony or something, right? But they were signed. Now it can be some guy living in whatever, Idaho, band never got signed, just have one record they did themselves, and they have money. So they're like, yeah, okay, we want, I don't know, 20 grand for you to be on the tour. Yeah, sure. So then they take the band. Okay, you open, you play half an hour and get the fuck off the stage. It's like, so it's like that. So basically it has a benefit if you're lucky, and if you're at the same time good enough that you get the opportunity. And what I mean by luck is somebody's there to see you.
Yeah, it's catching lightning in a bottle.
Pretty much. So it's I think right now I would prefer the route of just social media, push through their YouTube. Like, that's the way. If you're gonna get out there and get some traction, record labels have better chance to find you there versus trying to play shows and throwing all this money out.
I agree with you on that, because I've seen that way too many times, and I've seen bands coming across once, and then 10 years later, where the fuck are these people? I haven't even heard of them.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
so let me ask you about the $1 million question here. The costs of the visas now.
Right.
The word on the street, I don't have all the details. You probably know this way better than me, but the word on the street is that the cost of the visas is going to go up for the U.S. Anybody wanting to tour coming from Europe into the US is going to go up. What is the downfall of this? Because I see less upside and more downside.
It's all downside. I mean, there's no good from this. I think they were 600 ahead. They're going to go to 1,300 or something like that. So, do the math. If you're 4 or 5 people in the band, and all the lawyer costs, we're talking about just the filing costs. This is just government, but somebody has to file that. And it's usually lawyers that do that, because bands don't know how to do that. I don't even know how to do that. It's a very complicated thing, and you got to get all the press, and you got to, it's there's a lot of things they require. And so then you have to add the lawyer fees. It's going to cost bands, I think, easily 10 grand to get in now. It used to be $4,000. It used to be $2,000 10 years
And
ago.
there's another thing that people don't realize is not just the band members. If you're bringing in a sound guy, if you're bringing in a tour manager, if you're bringing in a merch person, you got to pay for their visas too.
You got to do that unless you have a good manager and he builds you a team in the United States, builds you a team in Europe, and builds you a team everywhere. And then you don't have to do that, right? You just fly
There you
in.
go.
You got your crew everywhere. Some people get attached to their sound guy if he's the best, right? So then that's how you decide. I can't tell you here how we do it, but sometimes there's ways around that. But there's no ways around getting into the country to play if you're going to be a musician coming from overseas. We're very lucky at the moment that Europe doesn't require that. I hope that doesn't change because that's going to change a lot of things.
Do you think they're gonna push back? Like if you guys are charging our guys to go there, we're gonna charge your guys to come here.
I think they need the I think they need the business very badly of musicians coming from everywhere that's drawing because the Europeans like to go see foreign bands a lot. Same here, same here. But unfortunately, we're not going to get into politics, but it doesn't look good right now, right? So,
No, I mean it doesn't look good for the venues. It doesn't look good for the
no,
bands. It doesn't look good
no.
for
Then
anybody.
look what's going on with Live Nation also and Ticketmaster and all this. They're breaking them up here, and I don't know if you saw that
Yeah.
they're getting sued. So basically, it's like it's we are living in an era of just complete corruption on all levels. Like it's just like greed is just taken over everything, in my opinion, right? Like I see it like that. It's like, the reason they're breaking up Ticketmaster and Live Nation is greed. They monopolize the entire industry, and you're going to pay $500 for a ticket, and that's it. It's like they're I've had conversations with Noel about it. He could tell you in person. You should interview him about that.
I've asked him. He tells me the stories off the record.
You can't go on the record, but
You can't go on the record.
I'm going to tell you something. We need to protect guys like him.
We 100%.
Need to protect guys like him, right? This is when you know that I am for the people. I'm for the people, by the people person. Like that's my number one thing. And we got to protect guys like Noel, because these are guys that have been there from the beginning. They're independent promoters. You eliminate those guys, then it's only Live Nation. And now all the little bands are not going to have a chance in hell to go anywhere. I'm telling you, and they're trying to kind of break up all these independent promoters everywhere. It's happening everywhere. So it's a
I'm
bad
seeing
thing.
it in my own backyard. I'm seeing it here because buying out the venues, pushing out the promoters out.
Yeah,
They have the financial backing that they can take a loss, so they don't give a shit because
they don't care.
they don't care. You know.
Yeah, they're coming. They were on this tour we just did now. They were giving away money to bands. Oh, we want to support you. Gas cards and all this stuff. And I'm thinking, what's going on that you're doing this? Why are you trying to be nice? Like, what's like again the questions, right? Ask questions. I think that's the biggest advice I can give anybody. Ask questions why it works and what made it work and how do you do it. And it's like learn, right? So, and sure enough, I told Steph, they're doing this for a reason. When I was on the road with them, I told them there's something up that's big. It's coming. I'm sure something's up. And then sure enough, US government is going to sue them. Just announced last week, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, there's always a reason why people do that, and they got to clear the money, right? They gotta move that money because they're gonna get sued. We don't have that much money, it's like we're with you, It's like, yeah. So basically, we got to protect guys like that. We gotta keep people that have potential, yourself included. Uh, we have to support them into getting bigger and better, and because that's going to be important for also the band's exposures. It's also important because we need good media, so we need good promoters, good media, good bands that have a chance to get out there, because it's going to end if we don't do it. Like I'm telling you, it's already hard. There's bands out there right now, I guarantee you, that they're the next Metallica. They're not going to get noticed at all. They're not even going to come out of their basements. Like it's just the way
So
it is.
so so let me ask you this, because I see already a lot of bands posting that, hey, we're not coming to the US anytime soon. Not for these prices. It's just not financially feasible. So, so my question is twofolded here. Uh, can Canada absorb some of these tours for some of these bands due to, the costs obviously being way cheaper to tour here
So
than?
I have an answer for you already for that. And my sprinters might be some of those answers, because you're going to lose. You can't. The reason they're thinking like that is because they're thinking, how I'm going to pay all this money in visas, then I have flights, then I have to pay a tour bus, then I can't do it, right? Well, you might have to scale down on the transport, right? Like you might have to, maybe instead of a bus, think bandwagon. Oh, my image. Well, you might have to eat a bit of your ego. I just did it, right? 30 years in, I just did it. So it's like, you know how many people knocked on the bus looking for me? No, he's in that white van over there. Oh shit, like a lot of people are like, and
He's
then they
slumming
open it
it.
and they're like, holy fuck, this is awesome. I said, yeah, this is my little private sector here. It's like, but this is the idea. It's like there's always a way. Okay, you got to find the light in darkness. Regardless, it's there. You just have to find it, and they if you don't, you're going to be slave to the system, and to beat it, you have to beat the system. To do it, you have to go around, right? What happens if it gets too heavy and they choke everything? Well, people are going to protest this at some point. People are going to be like, you're killing arts, you're killing this. And when you get to that level, then they'll slack it off. It always goes up and down. But for now, that's not going to happen anytime soon because it's a new law. So we
Yeah.
have to go around it. So instead of spending all that money on a bus, you might have to rent a Sprinter, or you might have to rent something a bit smaller in costs, and arrange your costs, right? So that's what I've always done. Even with Cataclysm, I was never the band that's going to go with the huge productions. Cataclysm is more like a street metal band, right? We are coming there like we're going to give our message, and it's going to be like Pantera back in the day type of thing in my head, and whatever you see is what you see, but that's what I'm thinking, and that's the way I do it. But I always cut my costs low, right? If you're going to go out there, even when I went big, I was like, well, one day it's going to go down. It never stays big. So a lot of bands get big, and then they can accept that lower level because it happens, right? I've educated my bands. I managed to it that it's going to come. I don't care how big you get. Metallica was never always at the Black Album situation. They're not there now. I mean, they're huge, but they're not, sales wise, they never went back to that, what they did there, right? So there's a pinnacle, and then you got to move around. You're going to go down, you're going to go back up, you're going to go down. It's just a cycle of life, right?
Mm-hmm.
Cycle of things, I should say. So basically, it's the same idea with everything. So you have to be able to roll with the punches, and you have to adapt. It's not the strongest that survive. It's who adapts, right? So if you adapt to your environment, you're going to be okay. That's so there is hope, right? I'm a bringer of hope. My wife told me that my sign is I'm a Gemini. She's into astrology and all this stuff, and she made me a believer in all that stuff. And it's the Gemini's a messenger, and that's what I do, right? I'm
I
a
thought you were
messenger.
the bringer of pain, but okay, hope
But
I'll
I'm
take
a bringer of vengeance, actually.
vengeance. Yes, yes. So the reason I asked you that question is because I'm seeing some bands now booking tours like for the east coast of Canada, for example.
Yeah,
A perfect example is Benighted. They're going to be coming from France in September, I believe, and they're just doing like Quebec and Ontario, and they're
yeah,
teaming up with a North American band, and they're doing this because minimal costs. They can use a van, they can travel around, and they can get exposure.
yeah.
Do you see more of that happening?
So again, costs, right? Where's Benighted from? France. You do a Paris to Montreal flight, you're looking at $500 a flight. So now I'm already off my head. I can tell you it's going to be a $2,000 investment. They could probably get a local band that's giving them the van. Done, no costs, worth it, absolutely worth it. The problem with Canada is the weak dollar. Okay, that's going to kill bands that want to come here that are bigger level. If you're asking me, is this a great idea for mid-level or lower mid-level or low-level bands? Absolutely, yes. But the big bands that are going to want to come into Canada at 35%, exchange rate with Europe, problem. There's not enough income to generate. They'd have to sell 3 times what they normally do in order to get some of those costs back. Problem with Canada, geographically, is very difficult to tour. The middle part's the
There's
problem.
nothing.
There's nothing. And, Saskatchewan, I would say that is the weakest province in Canada for touring. So it's a big chunk in the middle there that you have to cross. You have to take a day or two off. And then Winnipeg's okay, strong market. But then, Edmonton, Calgary, and Vancouver, then you're done. Then you have to come back. Unless you're doing straight and then you're flying out. Yeah, so there's a logistical thing, and you could do it only once. So is there going to be more bands coming to Canada and not the United States with these things? Yes. The caliber of bands is to be seen, because I'm not sure unless they're going to do really big numbers and it's worth it for them. There's no tour buses in Canada. So we deal with a lot of issues. Egos is one of them. Like I said, I ate my ego on this tour. I did it for many reasons, and it was not because I wanted to be second or four on the package, right? A lot of people were telling me I'm nuts to do that. I said I have a bigger plans. It's just not about that. But I had to eat my ego, and that's important to learn to do that also, because in the end, that's not what's going to feed things. It's not what's going to make the band get bigger. Sometimes you got to take a step backwards to take two in front, and that you need to do that. You know what I mean? And so it's I think that's what Ben need to understand. It's how to navigate better, right? It's not as easy as just I'm going to put my single out with the video, I'm going to put the album out, and that's it. It's gonna happen. No, it's gonna be just this one step.
Right? It's not Field of Dreams. Just because you build it, that doesn't mean they will come.
No, it's I think I have a very good understanding of the system of where we are in. I can tell you that every market is different in metal. If you ask a regular band that just started, and what I mean by regular, a band that doesn't have a lot of experience and they're just playing music because of passion, that's what they want to do, and they're doing it, and you ask them like, okay, so when you see Europe, do you see Europe as Europe, all of it is Europe, or you see different? And they're like, they don't understand mainland Europe, they don't understand the UK, Scandinavia, they don't understand that all that is different markets with different numbers, right? They don't know that, like, for example, the UK is like America. It's going to have extreme similarities into even the bands. There's bands that, like, that's why you see bands that sometimes are like, oh, we're huge in England, but nobody cares in Germany. But then everybody cares in America, right? And then you got the band that's like big in the United States and nowhere else. Then you got the band that's only big in Germany. Then they got, so you got that, right? So you have to understand how that works. The biggest challenge as a manager and as a band is to break everywhere, because the mentalities are different everywhere, So UK, not even Canada, I would say UK, US, Australia, very similar. Canada it changes itself because of Quebec. Quebec makes it more mainland Europe, more like France a little bit, more like, things that work in Germany, for example, work in Montreal, Quebec City, Toronto. There's a difference there. It's more European, Canada, I find. So you have a lot of that going on. So that's to me the acknowledgement of that for sure.
So what advice are you giving to your bands right now once they got the news about the visas going forward? Is there a specific message you're relaying to them, or you're taking as they come?
I go to the agency and I say, I need more money. And there you see why I created the agency. You see? So, but no.
It's a circle. It's a circle of life.
Look, if you can control your satellites, everything's producing something, you're going to be in a place where you can dictate a little bit, and I don't mean that in a dictatorship thing. You can dictate the outcomes of certain things. You can predict the outcomes of certain things because you have the ability to move things around. If you're just a band and I never wanted, this is actually, I did all this just to say this in the end, what I'm going to tell you right now. I never wanted an agency to tell me when and where I can tour and tell me this is, tell me, okay, you didn't do too well on this tour, your career's over. I never wanted that. I want to decide when that is the time. You don't get to decide just because there's at that period of time, like I told you before, it goes up and down, up and down. Because I'm down doesn't mean my band's dead, right? So it's gonna come back up if you were up at some point, if you're capable of thinking about the music and everything and working your stuff. So I created, one of those reasons was that I didn't want my faith in somebody else's hands. So now I have the responsibility of these bands, management, everybody that's with me, to push them in the right direction. So with this situation with the visas, I think what we're going to do is we're going to explore on costs on tour buses. Some of these guys, it doesn't affect them. I can tell you right now, a band like Windrose, even Septic Flesh and things like that, it's not going to affect them because they just have enough budget to do it. It just hurts a little bit more, but we're going to figure out a way how to get it back somehow, right? So when it's smaller, it's harder, but I have the sprinters. They're with me if they need it. This is the idea of building an army, building all the assets so that we're protected. I do believe in the saying, only the paranoid survive. So I'm a little bit like that. I don't fear. I do not fear, but I do have paranoia, right?
I think a little
And
bit
it's
of
a healthy.
paranoia is good. I think it's good.
It's like the guy that says, nothing's gonna happen. My door's open. I don't care. It's cool. Nobody's gonna come rob me. And then he gets robbed, right? I'm gonna lock my door.
Yeah,
Right?
just in
I
case.
might have a gun on the side of my thing also. Maybe I'm a little too much. I'm just saying, but I'm just telling you in the end, I don't trust things just because, right? You got to earn my trust. And it's like, so basically in life in general, I'm the same in music and everything. I make sure, right? I drove that van because I'm not going to build it, give it to another band that is with me, that I put my stamp of approval on. They go out, it breaks down, no power or something, and it's a piece of shit. I don't do that. I spent 6 weeks in it to make sure. So it's like, so that's the thing. Like, and I'm turning 50 soon. It's not easy for me to go on a thing like this. I feel good though, but I still had to go do it. You know what I mean? So I these are the things nobody knows about me, right? They judge me only on my toughness on the outside because I have to be like that, right? I've fought so hard with some bands that they piss off people that in return came back and hit me where it hurts my band because I can't get him here, but I'll get him here. You know what I mean? And that's been the story of, and then the rumors of all these things. I heard rumors on this tour about me from a Legion, the band that was it's first time I meet the guys. And the guys were like looking at me like a little bit kind of fearful at the beginning of the tour. And I won't bite, man. What's up? The guys came. Then they saw that this guy jokes around. He's cool. I gave him, things when I saw them, and like they were like, this guy's cool. And then they got closer and closer with us because I was also in a van like them. And they were like, why is he in a van? They were like, they got close to me, and then they realized. And then one day they were like, man, we heard so many rumors about you. And I was like, oh yeah. So they started giving me some things I'm not going to mention here because it's what the fuck, but it's like, okay, that's what they think I am, man. I'm like, okay, like, and it's way tougher and crazier than what anything I've ever done in my career. Like I've never been like that. I never threatened people or no, I just do my thing. But if I win at my thing, it doesn't mean that you're going to win too. You might lose if you're against me. If we're all going towards the same thing, if we're playing a soccer game, and
only one can win.
I want to win, right? So if I win, I win. It's like, don't be mad at me for it. But some people take it like that. So that's the way of the industry. You know what I mean? And that's okay. I'm tough skinned, and I'll deal with it. It's fine.
Listen, I think the message here is that you lead by example. I think that's the message here, and I'm going to be honest. If I was a band starting out now, the first thing that I would do, I would give you a phone call, and I'm like, I'll come and wash your cars if I have to. Like, give me a family and friends discount here, because I completely trust. I would completely trust you to look at my band and have my band in your best interest when you go out and you're going to battle on my behalf. I couldn't think of a better guy to be the spear, the front of that spear, that I would need as a band starting out, not knowing the business, not knowing who to talk to, afraid of being taken advantage of, and afraid of making a mistake that could haunt me for a very long time. So I think bands should look at what you're doing, and really see a partner, not you know, not anything beyond that. Really a partner,
Right.
someone you can
Yeah.
partner it up with, somebody you can work with together, and do something great at the same
Yeah.
time.
I mean, when I talk to, like, for example, when I'm with my bands, I don't talk about it. You guys are going to do this. Like, I'm like, we're going to do this. Like, we're in it together. You know what I mean? Like, and the other thing with me, I think that makes me different. And this, I mean, I don't know any other musicians really. There's a few out there, but there's not a lot that are in bands and managing bands. Not a lot, right? We have this thing where a lot of the people that are running the business have never been on tour. If they've been on tour, they've been there just as a tour manager, maybe, or as a, following one of their bands, but they've never been on the road playing. I understand what that is, right? I've been doing it since I'm 16. So I understand what that is. I understand what club you're going. I understand that if I go to this club and you have bad pre-sales, you're gonna have hot dogs and burgers for like dinner. I understand that if you have good pre-sales, they're going to give you steak, right? And they're going to give you like specifically Live Nation. If you're in a house of blues, that's how it is. It was always like that. So I understand the clubs. If I send one of my bands, I understand that in Leipzig they're playing Hellraiser, and they're playing in Stuttgart, they're playing whatever club, and I see them because I've been there. I know the backstage how they look. I know what the people that work there, so they get that with me, versus somebody that's behind the desk and that's never been out there, that just knows numbers. Right? You can know numbers, but you got to understand where these guys are at. It's like the soldier that's out there with the other. I'm a soldier like them. I've considered myself that, right? And that's all I am. I don't see myself bigger than anything. And then one day when I can't help bands anymore, then that's when I'm gonna stop. Like, that's the way I see it. It's not like something that I have to do. I do it because I love it.
And I hope that day doesn't come anytime soon. So, Maurizio, thank you very much, man. I really appreciate you taking this much time to chat with me about this. I was
No problem.
thinking
Cut it up as
beforehand.
you want. Cut it up as you want, man. I
No,
know it's
no, it's gonna go. This is a nice chat, and I think a lot of people are gonna get a lot out of this. And I thought when I saw, the trigger for me was this whole visa thing was the trigger for me to talk about you. But even before that, I really want to talk to you about your business side. And I even thought, okay, maybe I'll do a video just by myself talking about my thoughts in terms of the visas and stuff. But why should I do that? It never impacts me. I'm not the one paying for these visas. I'm not the one trying to make a living. So let me get somebody who's in the trenches, who knows exactly the pain and suffering that bands will go through and that are going through, and then have a more open conversation with someone that can really shed some light. And that way, the fans and the people watching are not getting information through a third party. They're getting it, like they say, from the
right.
horse's mouth.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like I said, they're gonna have to. The ones that are coming from Europe are gonna have to navigate the fees and everything. They're gonna have to navigate like you lose money here, but you're gonna have to save money somewhere else because you're throwing it there. You're gonna have to move like that, and it's possible for everybody to survive. And like I said, you have to find the light in the darkness. Is always a chance, right? And you do it also because you love to see bands come to Canada, right? In Toronto, you want to see bands, your favorite bands. You're like, fuck, they're coming, and I want to go see them. And if these visas are heavy, they're not gonna come. And then those weekends are going to be boring, or even that Monday. Sometimes on Monday is cool to have a show. You're right. It makes the week like
Yeah,
better,
yeah,
right?
and the venues
So
will suffer, and the restaurants around the venues, the parking lots around. I mean, it's an ecosystem that everybody's interconnected.
yeah, yeah. And then we'll do petitions. I think that we're going to do stuff to try and reverse this. We're going to do our best on our end, and maybe raise awareness and then see where it goes. But like I said, adaptation is the key to everything, right?
I agree with you. On that note, Maurizio, thank you very much once again for taking the time to chat with me. I hope to see you back on the road with a healed hamstring, jumping around, jumping
Yeah.
around and doing your thing. So thank you very much for taking the time. As always, it's a pleasure to talk to you. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. All the best to you, man. Cheers.
Take care.